Okay, it's 4:01. We're going to go ahead and get started with some intros, and then Kitty's going to have a couple of starter points for us. How this is going to go, I'm going to start off with a little intro about Moser. Most of you know a little something about Moser if you've been invited to this, or maybe you just stumbled across it. We're going to go through 3 small quick demos of our Honeycomb tool. And our tech experts are here to explain that. That would be Adrian Watts, Warren Sifry, and Melissa Miller. We're going to go to each of them in turn. And in between that, we're going to have cocktails presented by the cocktail guru and Kitty. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's just a quick hour. It's going to be a lot of good times. Hopefully you all got your cocktail kit. Does anybody have any questions about the cocktail kit or anything? Anybody not receive it? So feel free to turn your cameras on, leave your cameras on. Feel free to turn your microphones on and talk to us, ask questions of Kitty or of our tech expert talking about the Honeycomb tool. A little bit first about Moser. We are in the Moser Consulting building, at least Warren and I are today. We're in Castleton. We have offices in Castleton and in Baltimore, Maryland. We're a technology consulting solutions provider. We have more than 350 employees. Like I said, offices here and on the East Coast. We were founded by Ty and Paula Moser, and we've been in business for 26 years. We have 5 divisions where we do federal, state, and commercial work. Our divisions are application services, business services, data and analytics, government, and infrastructure. So basically all of your IT needs from beginning to end can be met by Moser. We work with any size business, and we work with businesses in almost every industry. And that's really one of the great things about the Honeycomb tool you're going to see today, is it can apply to any industry, any division, any department can use this tool and get information from your data. So I'm going to just let Kitty introduce herself real fast and give you a little pre-stuff before we go to our first demo and our first cocktail. Kitty?
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, thank you so much for having me. This is so much fun. My name is Kirsten Amen, but everybody in the industry knows me as Kitty, and I would love for you to also call me that too. I am a person who's been involved in the beverage industry since I could wait tables when I was a teenager. So it's actually turned into a career, and now my title when I work for the Cocktail Guru is beverage consultant, cocktail consultant. It is a fun job. I wanted to go over a few things from the top just to make sure we have everything that we need to make the drinks. So first things first, you have a little bit of pre-work to do, but you can probably do that as we go. So you want to make sure that you should have gotten 2 tea bags in your kit. So one is chai, and then the other is either green tea or chamomile. I think they sent one of those. So before we get started, if you have a chance, you want to run and get a little bit of warm water and steep your chai tea if you haven't already. And then another thing that we're going to do, which we can, I can cue at the end of the first cocktail that we demo, is we're going to be making our own steeped rum. So you want to make sure that you have your rum ready, maybe something to steep the rum in. I already went ahead and did mine, but those are a little bit of the pre-work. So what I would say to do right now is to go ahead and make your tea, and then we'll make the steeped rum together. I'll talk us through that as we go. Other than that, again, if you're just joining, you want to make sure you have glassware to put your cocktails in. So we're calling for 2 martini glasses. I went for vintage cocktail glasses because I love them. And then also either an old-fashioned glass or a rocks glass or a Moscow Mule mug. So any port in a storm, if you need to grab wine glasses, if you want to grab an old-fashioned glass and use rocks glasses for all 3, etc., you can go ahead and do that, but you want to make sure you have your glassware. We're also going to need a shaker to work with. So I have what's called a Boston shaker. We'll talk about that as we go. You could work with one of these. Again, you might have heard me joke about sports cups or mason jars. You can grab those. You'll also need something to measure with. So grab a jigger if you have one of these at home. So this or maybe a tablespoon would work well for today. A strainer, if you're working with a Boston shaker, is going to help you dispatch your cocktail from your ice. I'll talk through all of that, so don't get stressed out. Just grab the stuff if you've got it. And then you want to make sure that you grab a good amount of ice. So I bought mine at the store. I had it ready to go. Just grab whatever you have in your freezer and we will be ready to go shortly. I think that's it.
Thank you, Kitty. I'm going to pass it off to Adrian Watts. She's going to tell you a little bit about herself and then what she does for Moser. And then she's going to go into our first demo of Honeycomb. And then we will get ready to make that first cocktail.
Yeah, hi everyone. Hope you're having a great afternoon. My name is Adrienne Watts. I'm the Director of Analytics at Moser Consulting, and I'm going to talk for a couple minutes today about what Honeycomb is, and then share some sample dashboards with you and walk through the data stories that they tell. So first we'll start with what is Honeycomb. Honeycomb is a comprehensive data and analytics solution designed to centralize your data into a usable cloud platform. One key item to note today is that Honeycomb doesn't replace your HR system. It enhances it through data engineering and analytics. So there's no need to change systems. Honeycomb will leverage your existing data to generate analytics, dashboards, and meaningful insights. How does it work? First, let's talk about data. Honeycomb is positioned to bring all your data together from various source systems and platforms within your organization. We've highlighted some example data sources on the screen today to share with you. In this diagram on the left-hand side, I'll talk through 4 icons to highlight HR use cases. The first icon represents your HR system. Honeycomb can connect to your HR software to ingest data and store it in a meaningful format for easy reporting. The next icon below that, labeled Systems, highlights the other systems which may add value to your team. If you have a different system for payroll, finance, or recruiting, Honeycomb can ingest those data sources as well. The third icon says Flat Files. If you have data in formats such as Excel or CSV files, those can also be added to Honeycomb. And the fourth or bottom icon represents external data sources, such as websites or public data sets. If your organization is interested in something like this, Honeycomb can bring those data sets into the repository. For example, you could integrate with the USPS data to validate your zip codes and addresses to verify that there aren't typos or mistakes. You could ingest data from salary.com or payscale.com to see how your salary data compares to these public data sets. We highlight this to show that Honeycomb can bring in any data source that is open and connectable. And although we're focusing on the value that Honeycomb can bring to HR departments and teams during our demo today, Honeycomb can be leveraged as an enterprise-wide solution. With that in mind, out to the side, we have a variety of other data source examples ranging from social media, Google Analytics, if you're tracking website views or clicks, to ERP systems or CRMs and other data sources which exist in organizations today. Next, moving across the screen, we see arrows which point to the right. This represents the data flowing from the sources to the Honeycomb cloud platform. The large honeycomb in the middle of the screen represents a data repository to combine all the data sources and become a single source of truth for reporting and analytics. And finally, on the right-hand side, these images represent some of the various ways the data can be accessed by your teams, from reports and visualizations, delivering data to other applications, or providing access to data analysts or data scientists. Next, we'll talk about analytics. The analytics component includes visual reports, charts, and graphs, and we will demo several of these throughout the cocktail hour today. Analytics can support traditional reporting, as well as dashboards, visualizations, and telling stories with data. And then using these artifacts to drive insights, take action, and make decisions. These reports can be available online, on mobile devices, delivered to your inbox, or embedded into other applications. The analytics component also includes advanced analytics, such as data science, machine learning, and predictive analytics. And it also includes exporting data when needed to Excel or other formats. And now I'm going to share some sample dashboards with you. We've chosen to demo for you today a variety of reports, color palettes, and use cases. So keep in mind all the data has been scrubbed and anything you see can be customized to fit your data and requirements or your company brand and logo. The first report I'm demoing today is just a high-level benefits analysis. So in the top left-hand corner here is one way that you could visualize participation in benefits by employees. So here you could see the number of employees or percentage who participated in dental or vision coverage, long or short-term disability, or prescription drug coverage. In the bottom left-hand corner, you can track different types of leave if your organization is tracking at that level. For example, how many employees participated in bereavement or parental leave, sick time if it's tracked separately, or if you are giving employees time off to do training. In the top center area of the screen is one way to visualize how many employees participated in PPO versus high deductible and other plans that your organization may offer. And the bottom right-hand corner of the screen is dedicated to company culture and employee satisfaction. So this is one way to visualize satisfaction increases over the previous year and changes such as health plan changes or changes to the performance review process. And one fun corner over here on the right-hand side is notable changes from last year. So we can see for this org that standing desks increased 7% and telecommuting also increased 5%. And I always laugh when I demo this one because this is obviously pre-COVID data, because nowadays telecommuting has increased up to 90% for a lot of organizations. The next dashboard I have to share with you today is dedicated to diversity and inclusion data. This is one way that you could get a high-level peek at your diversity data. The first vertical bar is sharing disability information. You could visualize the age dispersion in the organization, as well as gender diversity. You could also talk about the years of work experience in your current workforce. There's an ethnicity band, as well as a band dedicated to education levels. And another diversity metric that we get requested a lot that's not on this particular screen is veteran status. So if you wanted to see metrics or KPIs around those, that information, you could add that to your screen as well. I have to move my Zoom bar. There we go. And the next report that I'm sharing today is about employee turnover. So this is a very traditional looking dashboard. I like to demo this one because everything on the page is interactive and clickable. So not just the buttons across the top, but also we'll practice clicking on the visuals themselves to give you the ability to slice and dice the data in a way that's meaningful for you. This dashboard is organized with some KPIs on the left-hand side. And a top 5 reasons that employees left here is our main visual. It is city government data. So we've got some buttons here to filter it by year or by department, such as fire department, mayor's office, and zoo. We can see that the top 5 reasons that they're losing employees include resignation, end of seasonal employment, normal retirement, end of temporary employment, and then some that were resignation but flagged to not rehire them. So when I click on the year 2021, we can see that all the numbers on the page have refreshed. And I'm also going to click on some, I've got turnover by age group here in the top right-hand side. And so if I want to click on one of the young age bands, like 20 to 29 years old, we can see the metrics update to reflect just that age band. So as expected, young people, very heavy on seasonal employment, but also just regular resignation. They're moving on got a better offer, change in their career path, etc. If we click on an age group, says 60 to 74 years old, we're going to see a lot more moving towards just normal retirement. You could click on any of these visuals and get more data about the particular data set that you're working with. And the final dashboard that I'm going to share with you this afternoon is an end of employment summary report. And this is in the assisted living industry. Again, the data has been scrubbed. So these are not their real numbers, but it does tell some interesting data stories here. They have 8 locations, we can see here. And the number of departures is 2,345. The average length of employment is just over a year. This is in days, 391 days. And they're capturing their departure reasons right here. So we can see that they had a lot of no-show, no-calls, like people just quit showing up. I think turnover is a significant issue in this industry. And the second most common reason is that they quit without notice. So they just told you that day, I'm not coming back tomorrow. They also had some departure reasons tagged as attendance issues, do not rehire, and personal issues. On the right-hand side, we can see it by location. So Breeze Point had a large number of departures, and River Trace is either smaller or doing something substantially better, and they have the lowest number of departures. And we've got a donut chart at the bottom of the people who left, what was their length of employment. So there was a large band that had been there less for a month and just decided that's not for them. Big band also for 1 to 6 months, 6 months to a year, and then 1 to 2, 2 to 3. So you could define your years in a way that's meaningful to you in this particular industry. There's a lot of turnover in the first 2 years. So this is the bands that were the most meaningful for them. You could also see the relative length of employment by facility over here. One way to do date slicers, instead of a drop down or typing it in, we've just got a nice button array up here. And so you could filter it down to individual months or by job classification, full-time, part-time, PRN, contractors, etc. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to the cocktail guru.
Hey, thank you. All right, so who's ready to get to mixing? So excited. So what we're going to want to do is you'll want to grab so for our first drink, we're going to move from left to right on your cocktail card. So I'll talk us through all the ingredients that we're going to work with. But for this first drink, we're going to make our spring daisy. So you want to make sure you have your chai tea ready. If you haven't had a chance to make that, you can start making it now. And by the time we're making the drink, you'll have a little bit of chai ready to go. So let's get started. So we're going to grab our cocktail shaker. So I'm using what's called the Boston shaker. This is like an industry favorite for people who bartend full time or do this professionally. If you don't have this, that's totally fine. A lot of you might have this cobbler shaker. These are awesome. This is called a cobbler shaker. And you know, there's historical reasons for that, but this one just has the strainer built into it. You also want to make sure you have a strainer if you're working with the kind of shaker that I have. And a jigger. So what I have is a conical unit of measure called a jigger. Before we get started, take a peek at the jigger at both sides of the cones, and just to make sure you know what the measurement is of each side. Really, when you're mixing cocktails, it's more about mixing in parts than it is about mixing in ounces. So as long as you kind of keep track of what you're working with as your main part source, you'll see as we go, but that's a great way to sort of reference if you have a jigger that doesn't have any labels on the side. And let's get started. And then we're also going to, of course, want to have our mixing glass or our cocktail glass. Sorry. So as you can see, I went ahead and did a little bartender pro tip of chilling my cocktail glass. So if you want to go ahead and do that now, you certainly can. This is just a great way to make sure that when you put the cold ingredients into your drink glass, your drink won't get warm because the glass was too warm. So we'll grab our rum, which is our base ingredient for this cocktail. We're making the spring daisy. And I'm going to do 2 ounces of that. So I know that this sugar, it's kind of funny. It's 1.5 ounces down here and 1 ounce up here. So I'm just going to use my 1 ounce sugar to guide me as I go. So you'll do 2 ounces into your shaker. Now, when I'm working with a Boston shaker, I usually use the clear side, the pint glass as my mixing glass. Doesn't matter too much. I'll talk a little bit more about why when we get to shaking. So 2 ounces of your rum to start. Then you're going to want to grab your tea. So your chai tea, it's actually going to be a full ounce of the chai tea. So the build of the liquid is pretty big in this drink. Just neither here nor there, just something to note. Then I'm going to find my honey syrup. So you guys should have gotten these little bottles called Cheeky, and the honey syrup would have been in one of those. That brand is so great, so wonderful to have all the stuff that you need to mix with at your fingertips. For this one, we're going to do 1/2 ounce of our honey syrup. So I'm just going to measure out 1/2 of my little 1 ounce cone right here. Again, you don't have to overthink it too much. We're just having fun. My hibiscus syrup, 1/2 ounce of that. Hibiscus syrup is so cool to work with. It's very high acid and also very herbaceous and spicy. It makes a beautiful color in your drinks. And then finally, you're going to want to grab our lemon juice. Do 1/2 ounce of lemon juice. Now you may be wondering why I'm mixing all of this stuff in my mixing glass without putting any ice over it. Another bartender pro tip, and this also applies for folks that are mixing at home. Something that we do when working on the bar is we usually build our drinks without putting any ice in them in case you get interrupted while you're mixing. So if someone wants to close their checkout or a chef wants to talk to you about something, that way you can walk away from whatever it is you're building and not worry about your drink getting diluted too much when it comes time to shake it. Another thing to note is that cocktails, when we think about cocktails and we think about all the ingredients in them, one of the main ingredients is actually going to be the water, right? So most cocktails you want to think about being about 25% water. So if you were to make your drink with the ice, walk away. Even if you're mixing at home, answer the door, deal with your kids, etc. If your drink gets to be over 25% water, it'll probably taste a little bit watered down and over diluted. Okay, so if your tea's ready, haven't edited it yet, we're going to add it now. Then we're finally going to add our ice. So another pro tip for cocktails that I like to think about is always wanting to use actually a little bit more ice than you might think when you're mixing. So you want to make sure that you're filling that shaker about 2/3 full, at least half, maybe about 2/3 full, that you're filling the mixing glass. And the reason that I use this pint glass instead of the shaker tin when I'm mixing at home, again, it doesn't matter too much, but that's because I like to, when I put the shaker tin on top, you want to give it like a nice smack, flip it over like this. And that way, if you're shaking and your cocktail shaker decides to separate or something bad happens like that, if you dump cocktail on anybody, it's going to be yourself, not on your guest. Okay, now, if we're all ready, we're going to shake. So shaking, when you shake cocktails, you want to think about shaking your cocktail to wake it up, not to put it to sleep, right? So it's not a lullaby, it's a wake up. And you want to think about shaking. So Jonathan Pogash, the founder of this company, he talks about shaking for about 8 Mississippis. So you can count or you can not count. What we're going to do is we're going to try to throw the ice from one end of the shaker to the other end of the shaker. Hold on tight and we'll go. Okay, pretty good. I counted in my head. If you have a shaker like mine, what you want to do is hold on to where the seal is with one hand, just so it doesn't go flying off, and then hit the place where it meets with the heel of your hand. Ooh, and you can hear it separate. Mine just separated like that. If you have the cobbler shaker, you're just going to take the top part off. Now I have my drink separated. Next, I'm going to grab my strainer. Okay, strainer, if you have what looks like this is called a Hawthorne strainer. The rings actually insert perfectly inside the mixing glass. Wonderful design. You want to grab onto the side of the shaker tin, with your dominant hand, and then put your pointer finger on top. The little rings should grab right around the inside. And then I'm just going to discard my ice that I had chilling my glass. I'm going to go right back in my ice bucket because I know it's clean. And then we'll go ahead and strain. Okay. Now, we always like to say that you drink with your eyes first, so you're not done until your cocktail has a beautiful garnish. I think you all have some dehydrated citrus wheels in your kits. I'm working with a different stuff at home. I didn't get a kit this time because I already have the stuff. That's part of my job title. So I'm just going to go ahead and put my fresh lime along the side. If you have a dehydrated one, you can just drop it over the top. And that's going to be our beautiful spring daisy. Cheers. Delightful. I can answer any questions or we can save them till the end if y'all folks want to move on with the presentation.
Anybody have a question about this? Is a very unusual cocktail. The tea kind of makes it fresh.
Yeah. Is the tea feeling a little strong? So the daisy is an interesting cocktail. It's a category of cocktail that is like super old. The first daisies were recorded in like the 1870s or like mid 1800s with the more, so, and the recipes changed a lot over time. So it's kind of difficult to like denote what exactly a daisy would be. Like for me, this drink actually kind of drinks a little bit like a cosmopolitan, which is kind of interesting because cosmopolitans are a very modern cocktail. But yeah, one thing, I mean, working with tea is a really great way to up level what would otherwise be like a basic formula. So for me, this is adding like a little bit more herbaceousness and spice, and chai is just such a lovely flavor to have in the fall. Although this is called a spring daisy, so it's working for me in the fall.
I think it works for fall.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for the first spring daisy. We are going to move, I believe Warren, you are next if you want to prepare. To say a minute about who you are and what you do for Moser, and then go into yours.
Alrighty, you're probably going to get the camera because we're all in the same room using the same mic, so you get to see all of me, just my face. It's great. All right, cool. My name is Warren Seifert, Director of Strategy for Data and Analytics here at Moser. And one of the things I kind of wanted to touch base on is something that Adrian alluded to, is that we can leverage Honeycomb in a way that goes beyond the HR needs and kind of covers just a broader band of capabilities that an organization that merits an HR department may have needs for. So what I'd like to do is kind of share my screen and see what I can do about making that happen here. Screen. Right, I think.
Yep, you are sure.
Excellent. All righty, so this is just a sample, something we kind of put together as to kind of showcase what's the art of the possible. Obviously, color palettes, all these things, just design aesthetic that we felt could be useful to understand what are some of the capability sets, both from a presentation perspective as well as from a data collection and organization. So ultimately, what this is kind of going through, this is dealing with donations and dealing with a population as a whole, right? So we've got different metrics here on the right that kind of show about targeted appeals, donation programs, engagement, campaigns, and commitments and goals, right? And these are active, active metrics. If you hover over, you will get some more information, right? And the intent here is that this is an active dashboard. It's not just a picture. But this is intended to be sort of like a summary page, maybe something you can have on a TV screen or something like that, walking into a home office. But then you get into the nitty gritty when we get to the next page. And some of the things we kind of wanted to showcase here is obviously information about the organization. In this case, dealing with the donation program, dealing with targeted appeals, and some metrics related to that, and being able to navigate, make your way through, right? Being able to click on things and kind of, we can choose whether we want things to interact or not. But one of the navigation features we want to bring up is what I like to call an old school tab format, right? Where instead of going to the right and clicking all these buttons as you see here, you can actually make that navigation part of your interface within the report. So here we can go in here, and now we're at this campaigns and appeals, and we're digging in deeper into those metrics, trying to understand a little bit more. And as you saw before, we have these little slicers that are either buttons where it can allow us to see what are the campaigns started that are dealing with the internet versus mail or both by holding the control key down, right? We can erase, we can go ahead and choose a specific organization. We can specifically choose a year, and all of a sudden things start to change all over the page. So this gives you the ability to be able to do some analytics around the type of information an organization may want to see. Ultimately, the aesthetics are under your control, right? You're able to determine how you wish to see things. And right now, I'm just undoing the slicers and kind of bringing it back to this home page that's there. So behind the scenes, Honeycomb is being used to store all of this data, shape it so that this report can be made available for you to be able to leverage. And as we make our way across the fundraising, this is a slightly different aesthetic. This time we have some charts, not as many slicers. We can choose specific years, and as you can see, things around the area will change. You see all these things that it's all highly interactive. Let's say some of this information is stuff that you wanted to make available, right? There's some capabilities depending on the tool set. Honeycomb happens to use Power BI. So one of the things that I'll offer you to do is be able to inject these reports inside of Teams, Microsoft Teams, if you're using that for chat. And that's something that allows you to go across. And as you can see, I'm just clicking these different tabs and being able to see different information. As part of all of this, right, we have full control of what you see and how you see it. This was done by human-centered design engineers and our report analysts all working together to develop this data set for you. right? We have the ability to be able to subscribe to things. So what this means is that, hey, you know what? I want to receive a link to this report once a week. I don't want to have to remember to go to it. I want it to sit in my inbox. So I can click on subscribe and they can say, okay, add a new subscription. And now I can be reminded at a frequency that I choose that, hey, this is going to be in my inbox. I don't have to remember it. If I choose to, I can sit here and choose to export this, and let's say I want to make this into a PowerPoint slide, right? Or I need to make it into a PDF or anything like that. So if there's ever information, any of these reports that are designed to be able to share, to be able to disseminate throughout the organization in curated and controlled ways, the tooling allows you to leverage those pieces. With that said, I'll hand it over to Kitty.
Thank you. Okay, let me step behind my standing desk. Okay, so this next drink, we're gonna have a little bit more work to do at the top, which is called infusing the tequila. I'm sorry, the rum. So basically what you're gonna wanna do is find something, and we can actually do this in the glass that you're gonna make the drink in if you want. Although I had separated mine separately to start. So you wanna take your rum, and then you'll pour out 2 ounces of the rum into whichever you're using, whether you're going to steep in a separate glass or if you're going to steep it in the glass that you're drinking the cocktail from, and grab your green tea or your chamomile packet. I think they sent you guys green tea instead. And just go ahead and you're going to do it like you're making tea. It's a little bit wild.
You never know.
You're making tea with alcohol. And then we're going to set aside and talk a little bit about the mule. So the mule cocktail is a cocktail that is having a super huge resurgence. It's a drink that has actually like a long storied history. It was created in 1941 by a man named John Martin, who works for a very large company, a spirits company that is now known as Diageo. I think actually they've changed and morphed many, many times, but back in the day they were called Hublane. And what John Martin had done is he had bought the rights to be able to sell and distribute Smirnoff vodka, which is Smirnoff vodka, in the United States. Unfortunately, in 1941, people were mostly drinking rum at the time, so vodka was not really having its moment yet, which is so crazy if you think about it, because most of us have been drinking vodka for years. For a long time, it's been very dominant on cocktail lists and things like that. So he ended up in a situation where he had all of his vodka and had no one to buy it. There was no American taste for it. And he ended up at this bar called the Cock and Bull Pub in LA. And it just so happened that the owner of that bar, who was also there with his girlfriend, had a side hustle, a side project, which was making ginger beer, which was also not going well. So he had cases and cases of ginger beer in the basement of his restaurant. The woman that was joining with them, she had just, it turned out, inherited a copper factory and had access to all kinds of copper mugs, none of which she knew what to do with. So the three of them put their heads together and they decided to do one of the most wonderful, like amazing and interesting marketing campaigns in order to drive taste and interest in vodka category in the States. So they created a drink called the Moscow Mule. So what we're doing is a riff on that cocktail today. The drink is simply a copper mug. So they had a copper mug that they used to serve the drink in, mixed with vodka and then just ginger beer, and that's it. But what John Martin did was he was a brilliant marketer. He involved a brand new type of camera at the time, which is called the Polaroid camera. And he used that to sort of do a little bit of guerrilla marketing, almost so much like being a social media influencer now. He would go into bars and he would take a picture. He would ask the bartender if he could take a picture of them drinking a cocktail or serving a cocktail, the Moscow Mule cocktail, with a copper mug. He would take 2 Polaroids and he would give one to the bartender and be like, here's your complimentary photo. And then he would take the other to the bar down the street and say, look, this is what I saw them mixing down the street. Can you make this cocktail for me? And on and on and so on and so on. And that's why we started drinking vodka in the US. It's kind of crazy. So by now you want to take a little peek at your rum that has been steeping, see what's happening. It should be getting a little bit darker in color. And because I want to give this a few more minutes, just like a moment to steep, we're going to build the cocktail starting with the syrup first. So find your mixing, whatever you're going to be drinking out of, because we're going to mix the drink in that glass. We'll start by adding a ½ ounce of our ginger syrup. So you'll grab your jigger and then ginger syrup. And again, I know that this particular jigger is actually 1 ounce and ½ ounce. So I'm going to work with the 1 ounce one, so I can just keep one side dirty. You'll do ½ ounce here of the ginger syrup. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and grab my steeping rum. So what I would recommend doing is just grabbing the tea bag and then just expressing any leftover stuff in there, just to make sure you have lots of nice flavor into your rum. And then really simple, we'll measure out our 2 ounces of the rum into our glass. So simple. This cocktail is like a great cheap at parties and things like that to impress people. People love this drink. And then from here, once we have everything, it's the really simple build. You're just going to add your ice. And then top with your soda. So club soda, nice and fresh on top. If you have a bar spoon nearby, you can give it a stir or just give it a little swirl if you forgot your bar spoon like I did. And then last little part, again, so we say that we drink with our eyes first, right? So you want the drink to be visually appealing. You folks have dehydrated lemon balm, I think, in your kits, but this is also a great place to employ something like mint, or if you decided, oh, I want to go a little crazy and make a different variation on this cocktail, you could use any herb from the garden like basil, something like that. And then just go ahead and prop that on the side of your glass. I'm gonna do it by my handle. And voila, you've got your beautiful little taste. Cheers. So this is a fun cocktail because this is a great way to build on a recipe that people already know and love, but give it a little bit more complexity, right? So the reason that folks really weren't drinking vodka back in the day when it launched in the US was because it was totally neutral and they were used to drinking spirits that had a lot of flavor. So this would be a fun way to sort of play around with a basic, simple recipe at home if you have guests coming over and want to just have a little fun. Cheers.
I think I put too much ginger in mine. It's a little strong.
Okay.
It's very good.
It's strong. That's great. That's good to know. So ways that you could modify that is you could use a little bit more club soda for sure. Give it a nice little stir. It will definitely dilute over time. But then another way to kind of add a little, if you ever have something that ends up being like a little bit too sweet, citrus is a good way to balance that. So citrus or bitter, since you probably have some extra lemon juice left over, you could also dash a little bit of that into the drink. It might taste a little bit better.
Rum, but hey,
More rum, maybe. Maybe I didn't use enough rum.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood the question. Definitely add more rum.
That's a different way to go. Okay. So next, we are going to have Melissa Miller.
All right, so I'll go ahead and get started and share. So yeah, as stated, I'm Melissa and I'm a consultant and I do Power BI design as well as development. And I really love Power BI, and that's what I'm going to show you today is a Power BI report and how you can get really amazing insights from your data when you do Power BI reporting. And kind of how you get, it's almost an app-like experience in here. So the report I'm going to show you is from this human resources reporting package, and potentially all of these little honeycombs could be buttons that would take you to different reports within this reporting package. But the report I'm going to show you today is specifically on recruitment and hiring. So we're going to go ahead and click the button. That's going to take us to the home page. So the home page here, we've got, it's going to be a general overview of the hiring and recruiting process. So at the top here, we've got the whole process going across the board from beginning to end. And this could be totally customizable to whatever your process is, whatever your hiring process is, but this is just an example. So they start with posting a new job, having the initial interviews, the second phase interviews, background acceptance, extending an offer, and then hiring that candidate. And then we also have some good insights that we can kind of get in here. A really good one, I think, is the modes that people are submitting applications. So from there, you can kind of see if you want to have, say, more people in person submitting applications, you can see that that's quite low. So you could find ways to advertise for that or get more into it. Or if you're really focusing on mobile and web, well, web is doing really well, but maybe focus more on posting on the mobile application if you wanted to bump that up. Something else I think is really fun is you can integrate maps into Power BI reporting. So this one here is showing people who have been recruited or engagements with job postings from around the world. So I think that kind of interaction is really fun just to see. And then we have a line and area chart here, and it's showing the applications that were submitted this year. And the legend is showing us it's from the green is the contract and seasonal applications and the full-time. And then we can see that there was 577 apps that were accepted and 33 were hired from that. So if we go here, and these are also, I wanted to point out, these are buttons that you just click on. So we'll go to the recruitment button. That's going to take us to the recruitment page. And this page actually has my favorite visualization, which is the funnel chart here. I think it just gives really good insight. So this one has got the applicants in each stage. So the first thing that popped out to me here was we've got 579 applications and we're doing 281 interviews, or in the example. And that is a lot of interviews, right? So you might be thinking, okay, when I see this, what could we do to get more information from those applicants in the application phase? You know, do we want to add having them give us a cover letter or adding their portfolio or things like that, just so we can get more information in this phase, so we're not spending a lot of time doing 281 interviews to ultimately hire 33 in the end. So we also have some KPIs up here. One that I really liked to show was this, that we've got the average days to fill a position is 46 in this data. And then it actually is connected to this graph down here, which is showing the average number of days by the department. So we've got an on average 46, but when we look at the bar graph here, we can see that these two departments have 152 days or 104 days to complete that or to fill that position. And then seeing it in a visual like this, you can see clearly like, okay, what is taking these two departments so long to fill a position? Is something going on here, or what can we dig into to kind of see what's going on with why they're taking such a long time to fill the positions compared to the average of the rest of the departments? And I also wanted to go over some functionality of this Power BI reports that you can do. I know Adrian showed a little bit as well of the functionality, and Warren did as well. But on here, we've got the percent of applicants by age and by gender over here. So on the donut chart, we have a male and female. And if, say, we're interested in seeing all these age groups by the applicants who are female, we simply click on it. And it's going to filter this chart over here. So we can see the percentages of each age group by female. And of course, we can do the same for the other side to see it by male. And if we click it again, this is going to bring it back to the default. And that can go the other way around as well. So if we're interested in the 45 to 54-year-olds, we just click on that bar. And then we're going to see the male and female ratios in that age group. And it's 5.95% for male and 6.11 for female. These are pretty 50-50 the whole time. But yeah, so I think it's you can get really good insights, and it's really nice to have this kind of interactive details as well. So I'm going to go on to the next page, which is the hiring process. Takes a little bit to load. There we go. And I really like this page. So it gives a very clear overview, again, of the different steps or phases of the hiring and recruiting process. And then we've got each person or system that is a part of the process, and then what they're doing in each phase of the process. So, and this again is customizable to who is a part of your hiring process and what the steps are in your hiring process would be customized to you. And a few things we could get from this that I really like is you can see if there are steps that maybe you're repeating, or maybe there's a few steps could be merged together if you're looking to make your hiring process more efficient. But even just having this general overview like this, say there's an executive or someone who's not necessarily a part of the hiring process, or they're a decision maker, but they can see the entire process laid out super clearly, exactly the way that it is. And maybe they want to say, you know, we just want to cut, you know, this section completely out of it or something like that. So it's really great to have this kind of broad overview, whereas if you haul up all of this in an Excel sheet, it's really hard to get any kind of insight out of it. You have to really dig, but having it clearly here like this shows you a lot. And I also really like the color coding to make it very clear that each step is different. And then it also matches here with the KPIs. So the jobs posted, 93, going into, it's got an orange dot to show that it belongs to this part of the process. Okay, so I'm going to go on to the last page of this report, which is the applicant's journey. And here we've got two filters on this report that you can slice and dice by, but there are many options you can have. We have job posting ID here, so the data here has been scrubbed, but you could have something like a Power BI developer here, a team manager, chief marketing officer, whatever the jobs are that you've posted, you could be able to filter by up here. And then also if that's full-time or seasonal or part-time or whichever time that you're offering for those types of jobs. And then we've got the applicant's actual steps that they go through up here, kind of like we did on that first page, going through initial interviews, the second phase, and their background being accepted, extending them an offer, and then being hired. But what I really like here is showing these small sections that belong to each section above and the color matching there. So we've got initial interviews and screening in round 1 have the same color, round 2 and the technical interview in the second phase, you know, going all the way down to the yellow and the candidate hired, just so you have this really clear view without having to dig really deeper to see which belongs to each one, because you can just see it clearly with the colors. And if we move on to the line chart, we can also see that there was 19 who were in the beginning, they started, and then they moved on, and then there was 6 who did not move on. So if we hover over, which it was popping out on its own as I was moving around, we can hover over the 6 who were eliminated. And in this particular one, you can see a bar chart of the elimination types. So of the 6 who were eliminated, 5 were eliminated for, it looks like, general reasons, like maybe they didn't have the right kind of visa or they just didn't have the proper skills. But one person was eliminated and kept on file. So they had a really interesting profile, but they just weren't right for this job. Or something like that. And you can get these kind of details by hovering over the graph. It's called a tooltip. And this could be a graph like this. It could be text like the ones that Warren was hovering over, was showing some text, and to get more data even than just the graph. And then the last thing I want to show you on this page, which is also, I think, a really cool part, is these are all the people who applied for this particular job. I have clicked on number 9. And then we've got their name here. And we can see, again, with that color coding that matches, the different steps they all went through. So those 6 that were eliminated didn't make it through any colors, unfortunately. But then as we move up, we can see who went through each phase based on the colors. And then it looks like it was Chris, who was the only one with yellow because he was the one who got the job. So I hope you could see how you could make data beautiful. I love making data beautiful, and get some valuable insights from your own data. So I think it's now back to the cocktail guru.
Thank you. Okay, so last little part, our final cocktail. Just as you love making data beautiful, we're going to make a beautiful cocktail to finish y'all off with tonight. So our last cocktail is going to be another shaken experience. So you want to make sure you have your shaker, whether it's one of these, the cobbler shaker or the Boston shaker. So this drink is an espresso pumptini. It's a variation on the espresso martini, which I'm sure you all know and love. And I can talk a little bit more about that if you have questions about the origins of that recipe, because it's kind of a fun story. But to build this, we're going to use our basic pointers about shaking once again. So we'll grab our rum. We're going to start with 2 ounces of rum. And if you remember nothing else from this besides the bills, I will be happy. If you like to make cocktails with sour ingredients in them, a basic template for building is similar to the one that we're going to be using today. So it would be 2 ounces of our base spirit. Then we're also going to use 3/4 of an ounce of our espresso syrup, again from Cheeky. This brand is awesome. So you're going to go for 3/4 of an ounce here. And again, go ahead and eyeball it if you're using a jigger like so. The other ingredient is just pomegranate syrup, nice and simple. Same amount, 3/4 of an ounce. Okay, And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to add our ice. So once again, thinking about plenty of ice in here. Getting lots of contact with the ice, the liquid. I'm going to go ahead and grab my shaker tin, put it on top, give it a whack. And then what are we going to do? We're going to shake it to wake it up, not to put it to sleep, right? So let's all go together and shake for about 8 seconds. Oh. I'm going to go ahead and hold on to the side of my Boston shaker and then give it a whack on the other side with my hand just to separate the two. So whether or not you've prepped your glass doesn't matter. You're going to go ahead and dump ice out if you did. Then we're grabbing our strainer. And what's so cool about this cheeky syrup is that because it has real espresso in it, it's actually going to have a nice foamy top to it like you get in a cocktail bar. I'm going to go ahead and strain my cocktail into the cocktail glass. And something that I absolutely love about this cocktail is that the pomegranate syrup joins with the fruitiness that you're going to find naturally in coffee. So I just think it has a great flavor, great balanced flavor. It's giving, as the kids say. And then finally, I know we've talked about drinking with your eyes first, but also it's good to know that 80% of what we experience at taste is actually smell. So your choice if you like cinnamon. Traditionally, we do cinnamon garnish for this cocktail. It's wonderful, delicious, kind of more desserty if you use that. If you don't like it, you don't have to use it. And I'm just going to go ahead and lay it over the edge. And in time, it will fall right into my drink, I'm sure. And cheers. Yay. Voila. Any thoughts about that cocktail? Any questions?
This is my favorite. This is really good.
Yay. Yeah, it's so good. I'm glad. Yeah, definitely. I would say pomegranate is a really great ingredient to work with in cocktails, especially like, you know, if you buy that palm in the grocery store or something like that, because it has a lot of natural acidity and then it's got a lot of sweetness too. So it can be really easy to mix with when you're mixing drinks. But yeah, I didn't know what to think when I first saw this recipe and I was so surprised pleasantly when I went ahead and made the drink and all the flavors just joined so well, the fruitiness as well as the bitterness.
It's pretty good. If you don't have espresso syrup, could you just use a little coffee? Is that a reasonable substitute? Or?
Yeah. So usually the thing that's nice about the espresso syrup is that it balances the sweetness and the coffee, right? So they have sugar. She's making it, the woman who owns this company, she's awesome. She's espresso and then just sugar and water to make the drink. So what you would want to look for is a little bit of coffee, something like that, maybe cold brew, whatever. Cold brew is awesome to work with. And then maybe like a Kahlua, or if you have like a coffee liqueur in your house, that's what I would probably do.
So what you're suggesting is that we go to Starbucks, we get a grande and a venti glass, and we pour the rest that we want in there and drink it.
Yes, that's
All
exactly right. You heard me.
Awesome. So does anybody have any questions for our tech experts that are here? I know we have a few minutes left, or for our cocktail guru about the cocktails. We did make a recording of this, so we will share that out to everybody who signed up over your emails. It'll take us about a day to get that prepared and out there, and the link for you to share. Anything else you need, you can stay on, or you can log off, and have a good evening.